Good afternoon, brothers and sisters in the Dharma. A very warm welcome to Ti-Sarana Buddhist Association's Cultivation program. We're very happy to have Dr. Yuen Yen with us today again. And today's session is a sixth session of a series of 8 Sutta meditations this afternoon. Let me just briefly outline the format of the session. Dr. Ng will start with the Sutta studies and take some questions about today's suttas, or maybe you may have some questions from last week. Then we'll take a 5 minutes break, followed by 30 minutes of meditation and more questions later on. If you have any questions at any time during the session, please type them in the link provided in the Zoom chat and the Facebook comment section. We'll ask them for you during the Q&A session. Before we start the session, let us begin the Vassāvāsa cultivation by paying homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammabuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammabuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammabuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchāmi. Dhammam saranam gacchāmi. Sangham saranam gacchāmi. Tutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchāmi. Tutiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchāmi. Tutiyampi Sangham saranam gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddham saranam gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Sangham saranam gacchāmi. May I now invite Dr. Ng to start the Sutta meditation session. You will see on the slides today the 3 suttas that will be covered by Dr. Ng. Dr. Ng, please.
Okay. Good afternoon. Today we will do the Noble Eightfold Path. So the Noble Eightfold Path will be the last part of the 37 Factors of Enlightenment. The 37 Factors of Enlightenment, to recap, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 4 right strivings, the 4 spiritual bases, the 5 faculties, the 5 powers, the 7 factors of enlightenment, and the Noble Eightfold Path. So today will be the Noble Eightfold Path. Now, the Noble Eightfold Path is the right understanding, right thoughts, right speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. So the right understanding or the right view, one has to have that first, because that will be the path that you lay out for yourself. So if you have the wrong view, you will walk along the wrong path. So it's very important to have the right understanding or the right view. And in all the suttas that we read or know, the right view is about the 4 noble truths. That means the right view is to understand suffering, the origin, the cessation, and the path. So I have to emphasize that right view is to understand suffering, its origin, its cessation, its end, and the path to end the suffering. So right view is the most important part. So the arising and the ending of suffering. So here we will know that these 37 factors of enlightenment, all of them play a part in each of the factor. So like for the right understanding of the Four Noble Truths, you need to have the mindfulness, the foundation of mindfulness on your body, on your feelings, on your mind and mind objects. That whether this is causing you suffering in the body, feeling, mind and mind objects. You have to know that, and that you have to strive to come out of that suffering, to apply the spiritual basis of the desire to come out, and that you must have energy and you must apply your mind and you have to investigate to see whether you are still in the state of suffering. Then you have to use your 5 faculties of confidence, energy, mindfulness, concentration and wisdom, so that they become 5 powers to lift you up. And again, you use the 7 factors of enlightenment: mindfulness, investigation, energy, rapture, tranquility, joy, concentration, and equanimity, to then be able to drive you on that path, the Noble Eightfold Path. So the whole of the holy life, or the whole of the practice, is the Noble Eightfold Path. So it's the same, all these 37 factors of enlightenment, you use it to apply to your right thoughts also. So these 2 are the wisdom factors. So you have to see whether this is causing you suffering and whether you are having the right thoughts to renounce the 5 sense pleasures that cause you suffering, not to indulge in the sense pleasures, and that you are having no ill will, avyapada, and no cruelty to both yourself and to others, so that you have right thoughts. So you have to apply all this for the right thoughts, so that you do not have suffering, so that oneself does not have suffering. And you want to have right speech, so that it's not cause suffering for yourself and others. And you have to apply your mindfulness on your speech. You have to strive to have right speech. You have to, check in your mind whether you are having right speech. So you have to develop all this in each of them. Right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. So it is just to say that these 37 factors is not by itself. You are integrating all this in the path. So all of them is integrated into the Noble Eightfold Path. So you have to have an understanding of this. So the Buddha just sort of like break it up to tell you, you need this. You have to have all this. So, although you don't have to say, am I having 37 factors of enlightenment in everything you think, say, or do? Of course, you should have. But the thing here is that they are there. If you practice it, they are there. So now we go into great detail on the right view, because the right view is the most important of the Noble Eightfold Path. So this right view, MN9, Sammādiṭṭhi, and is by Sariputta, Venerable Sariputta, and it was at Jetavana. So now Sariputta was with a group of bhikkhus, and he asked them, one with right view, one is of right view. What is the meaning of right view? He asked the bhikkhus, what is the one with right view? What is right view? So that when you have this right view, you will have the end result, Nibbana. Only when you have the right view, you will have Nibbana. You will see the truth. You have wrong view, you would not have Nibbana. You would not have the true knowledge and the true liberation. You have the wrong view, no Nibbana. So then he says, how does one arrive at the right view? Okay, then the bhikkhu says, we come a long way to listen to what you have to say, Venerable Sariputta. Then he says this. He says, so I want to give you an acronym. It's called Wat. Wat is the temple for the Thai temples. Wat. And what is this Wat? So for you to remember, it is, he says, the first way of seeing that right view, that you have the right view, is to see wholesomeness and its roots, and then unwholesomeness and its roots. So you know, we all say that right view is all talking about origin and cessation. Okay, so there's always origin and cessation and the path. All these 16 parts of it, we are going to say there are 16 ways of seeing, having the right view. And then with this 16 seeing, you can arrive at the top of the hill. 16 ways. So you say one way is to see wholesomeness and its roots, and unwholesomeness and its roots. So when you say about roots, this wholesomeness, the roots will be A loba, A dosa, and A moha. That means no lust, no anger, no ill will, and no delusion. And the roots of the unwholesomeness is loba, dosa, and moha. And he explains, so when you have an unwholesomeness, and what is unwholesomeness? He says unwholesomeness is associated with what? What is unwholesome? So he says very clearly, this unwholesome is killing, stealing, and here he says sensual misconduct. We used to see a kamesu michachara, right? But here he says sensual misconduct, not sexual misconduct, but sensual misconduct. So sensual misconduct, so you have the 5 senses. Any of the 5 senses, you can have misconduct when you indulge in any of the 5 senses. So for example, the taste buds, if you indulge excessively on something, then you might have a disease from it. So if you eat too much durians, you might get diabetic, right? And that if you hear too much of the music of a certain kind, you know, when the disco music, you rock your head, then you might have head injury, just like footballers butt their head. Then the eyes, if you see too much porno or you see too much of your handphone, you tire yourself. So this is indulging in the eye object. So we have the eyes, then the nose is a smelling of certain things. So smelling, maybe you are in a situation where you have to smell a lot of maybe fog or all this smoke or whatever. So you might have into problem, not in sense of indulging, but there may be a situation where you are in that position. So it is sensual misconduct. Sensual misconduct with any of the senses. Then of course, this one is another part of it is sexual misconduct. So he's now talking to bhikkhus, and the bhikkhus are celibate. So this sensual misconduct also applies to the bhikkhus. So we can also see how it works for us too, right? They say killing, stealing, sensual misconduct, and false speech, malicious speech. Then you have harsh speech and gossip. So all this, he says, it is unwholesome. And that after that, he said covetousness. Covetous, you are greedy for other people things, or you're greedy for things, covetousness, ill will, and wrong view. So this wrong view is being said in the Brahmajala Sutta, the first discourse of the Digha Nikaya. Wrong views encompass views like eternalism, like forever, or nihilism, that is just this material life, and when you end, it's end, and there is no afterlife, so there's nihilism. Or there is this fated, sort of prognosticate. Everything in your life is determined. So that is also a wrong view. These views are very associated, is very much associated with karma, right? When people do not believe in karma. So all this, there is a karmic effect. When you kill unwholesome, it is known that the person may have illnesses, lots of problems. When you steal, your wealth may go. When you have sensual misconduct, you again may suffer. When they have addiction to drugs or to alcohol or to whatever addiction they have. And when you have false speech, you cannot see the truth. You're very confused. A person who lies forgot what they lie, right? And the malicious speech, when you speak maliciously, you will also get malicious speech back. Or harsh speech, people may speak harshly to you, or people may gossip about you if you gossip about others. And if you are greedy, then you are in debt, always looking at eyeing at others' things. Ill will similarly, and then there's wrong view. So he says, these are the unwholesome. You have to abandon this. You have to abandon this with lots of effort. So when you do something wholesome, that means none of this, then the roots is A loba, A dosa, and A moha. So whatever you think you want to say or you want to do before, during, and after, you must examine whether you have these roots or not. You have these roots of loba, dosa, and moha. If you have these roots, then you have to stop. Before you do your thing, then I'm tainted, this is I have some agenda on my mind. Then you stop it, then you abandon it. So then you abandon the root. So there may be a lots of things, there are lots of issues in the world, but you have to ask yourself, is there an unwholesome root here? Do you have greed? Do you have ill will? Do you have a delusion that this is I, mine, forever permanent? So you have to ask yourself this. So this is, he says, with this, you can arrive at the truth. The bhikkhus asked him, is there any other way to arrive at the truth with the right view? Then he says, yes, ahara. Ahara means nutrients. Ahara means nutrients. And the nutrients are food, contact, mental formation, and consciousness. This is food. So these are the nutrients. That means this is what will nourish us as beings. And if you are to come, you would have to have this. For beings that are already beings, and for beings coming to existence, you have to have this. So they say first, food. So we all need food, right? If you do not have food, you're starved. and then he died, right? So we have to have this desire for food. So if the person still loving food, he has the will to live, right? If people do not want to, is depressed, do not want to eat, they have lost their will to live, then they don't want to eat food. They get more and more depressed, and they might just refuse food later. So contact. So food is something you all know that we crave for food. Yeah. Then you will live. Then contact. If you love somebody, you want to contact that person again and again. You love the drug or alcohol or cigarette, you can see them, contact again and again. So you can see this is a contact, okay? And mental formations, wanting to do things, okay? Having an idea to do things, thinking about things, planning, etc., etc. And consciousness. All these are food for existence. So the Buddha tells us that you have to denourish this. So he also taught in one particular sutta, he says that food, you have to consider it as like the sun's flesh. So there is a couple with a son going through the desert, and then they eaten all their rations. So the couple asked each other, instead of 3 of us perishing, shall we kill the son so that at least we can complete our journey? So the couple, after discussion, decided to kill their son for the food. So the food is only for survival. You don't delight in the food. So the Buddha says you only live for eating the food, not for like beauty or enjoyment, but he says just for survival. Then contact. He says contact. So it's like a cow standing beside the tree, and this cow is nibbled here and there by flies. Then the cow will move into the water, but yet the flies, from the water or from somewhere, there will be insects which will nibble it. So he just say that we are constantly nibbled by contacts from our 5 sense objects and our mind, constantly, throughout the day. So there is a lot of suffering, right? You are being nibbled here and there. Mental formations, then he says, is like that you are being held by 2 strong men. And these strong men, whether you want to do good things or, bad things, whatever things you are thinking, mental formations, these 2 strong men are going to bring you to the charcoal pit. That means all these mental formations will cause you a lot of suffering. So mental formations, when you keep thinking about this and that, can cause you a lot of suffering, can bring you to the charcoal pit. Then he says consciousness. Consciousness is like being spilled. Like, people stab you. 100 times stab you in the morning. 100 times stab you in the afternoon. And 100 times stab you in the night. That you are being stabbed by your consciousness. But you may not be aware of it because you got used to it. But the Buddha says you are stabbed by this consciousness. So he says, do not know. You try to denourish yourself from this. So the person who sees this and knows that the origin of all these nutrients, the origin is craving. You all agree, right? Craving. So with the ceasing of stopping of craving, then you have stopping of the nutrients. So he says, if you see it this way, you can stop craving. for your physical body as well as for your mental body. So for both the body and the mind, you don't nourish the craving. So what is the T? The T is the truth, the Four Noble Truths. So the Four Noble Truths, then he says there's suffering, there's the origin of suffering is craving, right? And then this cessation of suffering, and then we have the path. So this is the Four Noble Truths. So these Four Noble Truths, in a similar way, it is suffering. He said, what is suffering? So suffering is birth, aging, disease, and death. Birth, aging, disease, and death. So this is bad. And then it is also sad. Sorrow, lamentation, agitation, pain, displeasure, despair, depression. So there is the physical suffering and the mental suffering. So being with people that you do not like, or you are separated from people that you like, or situations, then there is also suffering. So he says, in short, the clinging to the five aggregates is suffering. So all these physical and mental, these five aggregates is physical and mental, right? Yeah. So clinging to the five aggregates is suffering. So this is suffering, and then what is the origin? He says is craving, delighting in this and that, this and that. So when you delight, then there will be suffering. So he says three kinds of tanha. So this craving is tanha, right? So there's kama tanha, sense pleasures. Bhava tanha, becoming. In the future, I'll be a millionaire. In the future, I have name, gain, fame, and lots of pleasure. So you have bhava in the future. In the future, I'll be reborn in a what realm. So this is future, okay? Becoming. Then we have vibhava. I don't want this to exist. I dislike it. So this is aversion. So you have off the middle. It's either you want or you don't want. So this state of wanting and not wanting is craving. Then what is the cessation? Then for complete cessation, he says that there is a sesa viraga nirodha, that you would actually see first giving up, chago, giving up. The second is patinisigo, abandon, or you leave it. 3, muti, release. 4, analayo, non-attachment. So the cessation, this cessation involves giving up, involves leaving it, abandoning it, and release. And that the craving, when presented to you, you will not touch. You will not contact. It doesn't move you. So this cessation is not just, it requires a release. So then after the path is this Noble Eightfold Path. So if you see suffering, you see its origin, and you're able to give up that origin, then it can be realized by following the path. So you see suffering again and again, physical suffering, mental suffering, you're clinging. Then if you feel that this is really suffering, you don't want any more, then it's given up. So this is what? Okay, you want to take a picture before I clean it up. Okay. After that, he went to the 12 DO, the 12 Dependent Origination. So the 12 Dependent Origination will be ignorance, paccaya, here, no need to write. Okay, ignorance, volition, consciousness, etc. So then he says, so the bhikkhus ask again, is there another way where we can see with right view? Then he says, yes. If you can see that aging and disease and death, if you see this and you ask yourself, what is the origin of aging? Why are we aging? Why are we facing with COVID? Why are we, people are dying? Then he says, the reason is because there is birth. That you are now a human being. If you are not a human being, you won't have all this. If you are the Deva realm, you won't have COVID, right? But you still have death. Because that is the nature. Beings come and go. So it says, so again now we use the origin and cessation. Always origin and cessation. So the origin of aging, disease, and death is birth. Birth. So you have no birth. So he says, this is, you have, what is aging? So he described this. What is aging? Decaying. What is death? Where there is no more, the body is dead, okay? No more heat. No more vital formations. Cold, right? So the body is dead. Then he says, this is death. And so he will define, he will define out each one of them. Then he says, the origin of this aging, disease, and death is birth. And this itself, you can have the right view. If this is the cause, if we age, if every realm we go to, we age and die, then why do you need to go to every realm again and again? Why do you do it beginningless time? You ask yourself, why are you doing primary one again and again and again? Some people do primary one again and again and again. Repeat student again and again and again. So why do you want to do that? You might go, if let's say you do not have the right view, you might fall even to the lower realms. Higher realms or lower realms, you still go through aging and death because you have birth. So the one with the right view is done away with aging and death, then they don't take rebirth. So the Buddha and the Arahants says that the job is done. There is no more rebirth. Because with no rebirth, there is no more mess of suffering. So this itself alone can spur on one to do the right things, to walk the right path, to have the right view, the right thoughts, the right speech, the action, livelihood, mindfulness, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. that is enough to put this person, to put this being on the straight path. Then he says, what is birth? Birth, he says, is coming into from any realm. You go in, if you are in any realm, you can take birth in any of the realms. The lower realms, the human realms, the higher realms. He says it will precipitate into that realm. And then you generate. You acquire the aggregates. And then as a human, we have our basis of contact. So then you're born into that realm. So that is birth. Then what is the cause of the birth? You see, you always have this. So the cause of the birth is becoming. So if you do not have becoming, you won't have birth. So then, if let's say there's this consciousness, you die already, then a consciousness, then maybe you are delighting and all that. Then unmindfully, you drop in. Then you must say, oops, I'm precipitating into this, I'm getting myself into this state. Quickly go out. Either you go out effortlessly or with effort. So this is what being can do. And it is not like only when you die. It's also when you want things. It's also when you want things so much, you want something to happen. It's the birth of maybe a washing machine, I don't know, or a birth of whatever, no? People want some item. Nowadays, I think there are a lot of things in the online. Whatever is, you want it, then when you have it, you have a birth of it. So you don't want it, nah? You have lived a simple life, you don't have birth of that thing. You don't need to like die then see this thing, but you can see what is happening when you do certain things. It's actually maybe a promotion, a job, or whatever. It is a birth of a relationship, birth of a child, birth of a relationship, or whatever. It's not only like this is, of course, this is talking about physical birth lah. But you can think of it as a mental birth too. When you have a mental birth that you create and then you bring it about in a material form. So it is becoming. So the origin is becoming. So if you don't want birth, you can stop it. You don't want to have it. Okay? So then the origin of it is becoming. Then it says, what is becoming? It says, becoming is when you want to become in the sense sphere, the rupa jhanas or the arupa jhanas. So people can go into those realms, in all the realms. So there's becoming. So this, these realms, as long as you have a life, so you can go into these states. So the Buddha says the jhanas and the arupa jhanas are a factor. You can stay a long time in those states. So if you stay a long time in those states, there may be no opportunity to listen to the Dharma. So anyway, the sense sphere also, there is this sense sphere. So the sense sphere, the devas are encouraged when they die to come to the human realm, because here they can hear the Dharma. They can listen to the Dharma. So then we have the becoming, and the becoming, the origin of becoming is you cling. You want to go into those realms, or there's a tendency to go to those realms because the practice that you go to the jhanas or the arupa jhanas very frequently. So of course, then you have the becoming to the sense sphere. If you enjoy the sense sphere so much that you have enough merits, you come back to these spheres. The sense spheres is the human realm and also the animal realms and the lower realms. All these also have, all including all the samsaric realms. So we consider all the samsaric realms as suffering. If you see that all samsaric realms are suffering, you won't want to become anything. You won't want to take birth in any of these states. Even in the Brahma world or the hell beings. So when one is led to, in the last moments to die, and that the Sariputta left a Brahmin, Dhanajani, he led him to the Brahma world, and then he left him in the Brahma world, and then after that Dhanajani dies, and Sariputta reported his death to the Buddha. It says that the Dhanajani has died and gone to the Brahma world. The Buddha asked him, why did he not complete the job? You should have said, in other of the suttas, we can read the suttas, and the Buddha says, even the Brahma, you must say, even the Brahma world is impermanent. So you wouldn't want to go even to the Brahma world. So that this becoming doesn't hold, doesn't appear to you, because this is also all the spheres, all the realms of samsara are impermanent. So if you just, this itself, the right view, the right liberation. So it's clinging, okay? So the origin is clinging. So he explain now what is clinging. He says clinging, he says there are four things. Either you cling to your sense pleasures of your five sense base, or you cling to your mind, your views, or your rituals, or your habits, and of course the sense of the self, that there is a self, a soul, right? So if you cling to any of this, then there will be a becoming. So then he says clinging, he defined the clinging. Then he says what is the origin of clinging? Will be craving, right? If you do not have craving, you won't have clinging. So craving, he says the craving is a craving to the six sense objects. Right, you all have said craving here already just now. Right, Kama Tanha, Bhava Tanha, and Vibhava Tanha. And the origin of craving is feeling. Okay, so feeling, because you have this feeling, you crave. Craving is brings nutrition, right? Brings all the nutrients. That means you bring all the suffering also. Because nutrients, whatever you eat, can get sickness one, can die. So you would not want craving. Then the origin of craving is feeling. Because we are, this feeling, he says the feeling is of the six sense objects. And if we all see feeling, it's just all these neuronal sensations only. You see them as impermanent. Why do you want to crave for certain feelings? Why are you puppeted by your feelings? So you are puppeted by your feelings, then you have craving. If you do not get puppeted by your feelings, then you won't have craving. So then after that, feeling is because of contact. And contact, you already says just now, of the three things that come together. The sense object, the sense base, and the sense consciousness. It comes and it goes. So this contact is from the sense origin. So each one can be seen, contact. It comes and goes. So in the previous topic, we talked about the faculties of the sixth sense base. The contact comes and goes, is impermanent. It's like the blink of the eye, the snap of the finger. It's like a snot coming out from your nose, like the spittle in your mouth for the taste. For your body, it's just like that, flex and extend. All these contacts are impermanent. And your mind is just like 2 or 3 drops onto a hot pan and it disappears. So impermanent are these contacts. So why do you crave? Why do you seek for contact? So if you see this as it is, then you see the truth. So for this itself, then 6 sense base also. The origin is 6 sense bases. So the 6 sense base, you can see from contact, the 6 sense base are also impermanent. Nothing to hold on to. So the 6 sense base, because you have a mind and body, the 5 aggregates, it says, the 4 elements and the feeling, perception, mental formations. And the mind body, the origin is the consciousness. So the consciousness descends into this mind body. It then generates and establishes. So the origin of this is consciousness. And the origin of consciousness, the whole 6 consciousness, 6 kind of consciousness. The origin of this is volition, intentions of your body, speech, and mind. Body formations, speech formations, and mental formations. So you have formations, intentions. So if you have intentions, you will drive the car, consciousness. So this volition is another word, is intentions. Only when you have craving, then you have intentions. You have no craving, you have no intentions to do this or that, to speak this or that. Right. So he says, if you know volitions, you will know your cravings. So the volition is one big topic. And volition, we all know, volition for wholesome things is so powerful. So is volition for unwholesome things is also just as powerful. So you must have even more volition, so you must even have more striving to overcome your unwholesome volitions. Because these volitions will drive everything down to bad and sad. So volitions are something that we are able to see. You just have to say, what is your intention here? And although we cannot see ignorance, ignorance is something is like, we don't know what we don't know. Ignorant ma. But we know what our intentions are. So our intentions, you have to see very, very clearly so that you would not drive yourself down to birth, aging, disease, death, sadness, agitation, despair, depression. So all this is self-inflicted, no? Nobody did this to us. We did this to ourselves because we don't see properly. So then what is the origin of volition, intentions? Is because of ignorance. Ignorance of the 4 Noble Truths. And then ignorance, he says, what's the origin of ignorance? The origin of ignorance, he says, is taints. So this is the last, the 16. So there are 12 here. So there are 4 here. And the last is the taints. Taints of sense pleasures, taints of views, taints of ignorance. So you have taints. So, and the origin of this is ignorance. So they are supportive of each other. So you have this, this is the 16 ways whereby you can have the right view, so that with this right view, you can walk the right path, the straight path to the end. So you can see from here, there are 16 ways to see this. And all this is like a chain, you know. This is like a chain. handcuff. Handcuff. So they say you are entangled. Can you see the entanglement? So the entanglement, you can break it. He says you can break it. So he does it from reverse, right? So he said you can break, no? You can break it. You break already. Or you can break. No more birth. No more birth. Then no more. So he says you can break it from each one. When you break from bad and sad. You break from bad and sad. No more. You break here, no more. When you break here, becoming to birth, no more. No more birth.
So it's liberated.
Yeah. So this breaking here, becoming no more birth, this is the Nibbana. No more birth of bad and sad. You might have the physical body aging, etc. But then there is no more sad. So this is because we will have aging, because we are already a human being, you would have disease and death, right? But you would not have sad. So mentally, you are not affected. So that's why the body may be sick, but the mind is not. So this is, you break it here. So no more. You break it here, no more. If you
break one limb, or you break so many limbs.
You break. If let's say you break here, so each of the topics, there are 16 steps, right?
Yeah.
So that means you break it, you break in the 12 links, you can break it. You break here already, no more,
Oh.
If you break here, no more here,
Okay.
If you break here, then no more, lo. So it depends on where you break, lo.
Which is the...
It is individual, right?
Oh.
The individual practice, which one appeals to you? So it depends on where you break. So what Venerable Sariputta says is that you can break it. You have the right view. Then the bhikkhus keep asking him, is there any other way? Is there any other way to see? So he tells them, this is the way, 1 way, 2 way, 3 way. So he has 16 ways. So if you, let's say the taints, you say, what are my taints? What are my taints? So you can, so the taints that you will know, is it sense pleasures? So the first 5 disciples, they are not interested in their sense pleasures already, right? It's just their view and ignorance only. The taints are taints of sense pleasures, views and ignorance. It's just the view only. They think self-mortification is the way to enlightenment, but it is a wrong view, right? So, and also they have this view that there is a self, ignorance that there is no self. There's an ignorance that there's a self for them. So once they have broken the view and turned it to the right view, then they realized for the first 5 disciples. So there is just the first of the 5 disciples, Kondana. He says, what arises cease. What arises cease. All this is what arises cease. What arises cease. Every one of them arise and cease, arise and cease. So why do you want to indulge in any one of them? It's impermanent. All of these are impermanent. One of them is impermanent. But you have to recognize that you are becoming, you are clinging, you are craving. You must recognize them. Otherwise, it's still ignorance. So the question is, what's the origin? What is the root of it? So the taints. So you have another, this taints might be difficult, but there's another sutta which tells you of ignorance and its origin. And its ignorance and its origin, another acronym is this highly misconducting uncle. The Buddha says in the ignorance sutta, Avijja Sutta, that the origin is this following. These hindrances, the 5 hindrances, will feed your ignorance. Lust, lobha, sense pleasures, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry and doubt will feed your ignorance. And what feeds this? Misconduct, unrestrained, the cause, no mindfulness, careless attention, lack of faith, ears hear no dharma, and you mix with evil. Like this because this acronym, highly misbehaving uncle. I'm not sexist, just I like this acronym. This highly misbehaving uncle, he says that evil, if you have evil, you mix with evil people, then you will not hear the Dharma. These evil people will not ask you to go and listen to Dharma. You will have lack of faith. You will have careless attention. Your careless attention is to unwholesome things. Then you have no mindfulness. You have no restraint. You only misbehave. And this will add to your hindrances and it will add to your ignorance. And then you have a whole lot of bad and sad. So these hindrances is easier to see. Oh, what's my hindrance? Rather than things. Hindrances is easier to see. So then we go to the next sutta. The next sutta, very briefly, the next sutta is the holy life. This is from the Sammādiṭṭhi collected discourses on the path. Path. So path, the holy life. So in a particular place, and I think it's the Sakyan country, Nagaraka, there Venerable Ananda asked the Buddha, he says that good friends, good companion, good companionship makes up half your holy life. The Buddha says, no, they make up the whole of your holy life. So you can see why it makes up the whole of your holy life, because he says your good friends will encourage you to cultivate, to develop the Noble Eightfold Path. If you go wrong, your good friends will tell you, hey, go back to the path. So in that way, your good friends is the whole of your holy life. Then so you can see, if you mix with evil friends, you mix with evil company, it will lead you to ignorance. But if you mix with good friends, you will listen to the Dharma. Correct? Yes. Your faith will increase. You will have careful attention. You will have mindfulness. And you will restrain. And you will behave. You have good conduct. And you will develop the 7 factors of enlightenment. And these 7 factors of enlightenment will overcome your ignorance. Notice that the Bojjhanga Sutta has hindrances and the 7 factors of enlightenment. The nutrients are there. Nutrients 1 for the hindrances and nutrients 2 for the 7 factors of enlightenment. So you can see that with good friends, you will practice and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path. So you can understand this, half the holy life is a wrong answer. It's the whole of your holy life. Then the Buddha says you can consider it another way. You can consider that I am your good friend. The Buddha is your good friend. If you consider the Buddha as your good friend and you have no good friends, then you only have Buddha as your good friend, then that is enough. To have Buddha guiding you through all the suttas will lead you to the right view, smash the ignorance. So take me, he says, another method, he said, take me as your good friend. And then with that, he says, then you will end birth, aging, disease, and death. So these good friends will be a whole of your holy life. So taking Buddha as your good friend, then you will end the suffering. So this is the path, and then the other one is cliff. And the Samyutta is truth. So they were at Rajagaha, and at Rajagaha, there is the Buddha and the monks. At Rajagaha is the vulture's peak. And this, the Buddha then said, let's go to the Patibbana peak, which is called the inspirational peak. So let's go to the inspirational peak for the day's abiding. Then they went. And one of the bhikkhus saw the peak of this inspiration peak. And then he says, wow, so steep, the peak, so steep, so frightening. He says, is there any other cliff that is, steeper than this and more frightening than this? Then the Buddha says, yes, there is. He says that those who do not know the Four Noble Truths, suffering, the origin, the end of suffering, and the path to the end, then will have volitional formations. So the volitional formation again is so important. We also say the volitional forming, when they delight in something, they will generate the desire. When you delight, you will desire. It's a very natural tendency. You will generate the formations. And when you generate the formations, you will fall down the cliff of bad and sad. So as long as you have delight, as long as you have volitional formations, we all know, right? Volitional formations for striving is so much already, right? If you have delight, then you will generate the volitional formations. When you have craving, you have delight in it, then you will form the volitional formations, and then you will fall down. And you also will see these volitional formations. The mind is not sharp, is defar, like there are a lot of clouds. So there's volitional formations of clinging that you may not know. So here he says, if you very clear about your volition and that you have no delight, then you will not generate the desire for those. If you don't generate the desires, then you will not be bad and sad. So volitional formation, this is to emphasize volitional formations. Another word is sankhara. Sankhara. Sabbe sankhara dukkha. Okay, so sabbe sankhara. So volition, all kinds of sankhara, all kinds of volition is dukkha. You don't want to take rebirth into dukkha. So you can see volition is something that you have to see for yourself what it is. So I think today we end here. So today's topic is about the Noble Eightfold Path. So Venerable Sariputta discusses all the 16 right views to get to the right end, the end of suffering, and half the holy life. This is The good friends is the whole of your holy life. Take the Buddha as your good friend. Then, if we want to not fall down the cliff to suffering, then we should not generate volitions of delight and desire. Okay.
Yeah, we shall take some questions on the sutta before the meditation session. If you have any question about your practice since last session, please feel free to ask them too. Dr. Ng, there's one question online from Sister Xiao Pang. The question is, good afternoon, Dr. Ng. When we talk about consciousness, we can say that it is our attention and awareness. How do we denourish our consciousness?
Okay, so we want to can I talk now?
Yes. Thank you.
When we say we want to denourish our consciousness, we want to denourish the consciousness of craving. Okay, that means we want to denourish that consciousness that leads to craving. So the origin of that consciousness is volition. How to denourish consciousness is not to have the volition for unwholesome. The volition for only the right strivings and the right spiritual basis, or any of the 37 factors of enlightenment, because we want to nourish them along the right path. We don't want to nourish the volitions on the wrong path. It's only when we see, when we completely abandon the volitions for the unwholesome, whatever unwholesome volitions we abandon, then they will not lead to bad and sad. So as long as we are human beings, we will have volitions. There will be major intentions in your life. So you have to decide at those junctures. So you want to see whether you want to nourish or denourish. So if it's unwholesome, you have to denourish them. So you must have careful attention. So all this is to denourish the unwholesome consciousness. It's not only this volition, but how to promote. You have a good friend, you listen to the Dharma, you have faith, you have careful attention, you have mindfulness, restraint, good conduct, 7 factors of enlightenment. Then you will nourish the volition, and then you have consciousness, so that it will help you not to get bad and sad. But when at every contact, you have 3 things that come. So what are the main things? We are not concerned about sense objects. We are more concerned about mind objects. So suffering, the 4 noble truths in Satipatthana, is seen as a mind object. So when you say this is suffering, then it is as a mind object, and you want to say the origin of that suffering. Then you see whether this can be let go, the let go of that clinging. So every contact has this twinkle twinkle little stars effect. Just like a contact of a sound, it comes and it goes like a snap of a finger. So seeing sound object is very easy. So you can hear the sound is sharp. But for a mind object, they have overlay of clinging. So it may not be clear. But the mind object has a similar effect. The mind consciousness goes to the mind object. And the mind object is not the mind base. So you have 3 things, right? You have a base, like an eye, easy to see, and the mind base, like now we are in a human mind base. I'm not in jhanas, I'm just in the usual mind base. So you have a base and you have an object. So you have an eye object. So an eye object or ear object is like sound or sight. So sound is easier to appreciate because 观世音 that's why they say this. If you can hear the sound, you can notice the sound. The sound just come and go like this. You can't catch the sound; it's gone already, like a snap of a finger. So similarly for the mind and the mind object, all these have the consciousness here. The activity or the process of the contact of the ear object and the ear consciousness. It is because of this ear and the ear object, then there is arising of ear consciousness. If there is none of this, if this is not functioning well, then you have the object, must be very clear, object and base is entirely different. So the mind object and the mind base is entirely different. But because our mind objects appear to be like constricted within this 1.5 or 1.48 meter high, then you feel that it's inside you. But it is just a mind object. It's just a mind object, just like sound is like a ear object. So the mind consciousness arises only when the mind object and the mind base is functional, active. So when the mind consciousness arises and ceases, as in the sound, just like the sound, the ear consciousness arises and ceases with a snap of a finger. The ear consciousness has ceased already. I'm not snapping my finger now. So the mind object also ceases by its nature. But because we cling with our volitions, the formations of delight or with kammatthana, bhavatthana or vibhavatthana, that we do not allow it to disperse. So all this, the Noble Eightfold Path requires seclusion so that you can see very clearly that each contact arises and ceases. So mind consciousness arises and ceases then and there for that contact of that mind object, just like 2 or 3 drops onto a hot plate, the mind object disappear. So you will see thoughts sometimes it hasn't completely formed, you can poke. So these are mind objects. It is not the mind. The mind objects is separate from the mind. Just like the sound is separate from the ear. So you see it in an immeasurable with mind base. You can just see it as an object that comes and goes. So suffering is also a mind object that comes and goes. So we have the mind objects, the Buddha says in Satipatthana, the mind objects, they are the hindrances, the 5 hindrances, the 5 aggregates of clinging, the 6 sense bases, the 7 factors of enlightenment, and the Noble Eightfold Path. Because you have this mind object that you are looking at. So the consciousness comes and contact that mind object, and then it is arise and ends. So similarly, that mind consciousness arises and ends. So you can see that it arises and ends when you see the characteristics of the Dharma. which they will say in the Anapanasati, it is anicca, is impermanent. If you see impermanent, you have to see viraga. You can say dispassion, nirodha, cessation, and then patinisego as abandoning. So they also say release. So not only do you see impermanence, you have to see dispassion. You have to see that each contact has its release. It has its release. So they always say maturing, seclusion, dispassion, cessation, and release. So you have to see the release also. It's not only impermanent that you have to see. You have to see its release. You have to see it end, so that you will not fit that the consciousness is forever, because you see each object arises and ends as for the consciousness as the five aggregates. So the five aggregates, the Buddha says, arises and ceases. Just like foam, feelings are like bubbles, raindrops, and that perception is like a mirage. Mental formations are like an empty, like an empty trunk of a banana or plantain trunk. And consciousness is magic, because it pulls everything together. Your eye consciousness, your sound consciousness, whatever comes together, and voila, you have something when there wasn't anything. Before, you didn't even observe that there's such a thing here. Then when you pay attention, oh, there is. So your consciousness has to bring all of them together to give you that formation. So it's like magic like that. So how do we see that? How do we denourish? It's not, this consciousness is a tool. Right? We denourish our craving. Consciousness is just a tool. It's one of the five aggregates. As long as we are having a body and a mind, we will have a mind consciousness. That makes us different. So I hope I explain mind consciousness. It arises and ceases. It's like any other conditioned things. We need to direct our consciousness only to the wholesome things, so that we have to give careful attention to wholesome things. When we have our attention on unwholesome things, it's called careless attention. When our mind falls on the unwholesome and we dwell on it, then this is called careless attention. When we have careful attention, we dwell on the wholesome and we grow the wholesome, then it is careful attention. So attention is the duration you contact that object. You are supposed not to contact unwholesome. You are supposed to contact the wholesome. So when you contact the wholesome, then it will grow. It will grow like the 7 factors of enlightenment, like grow the Noble Eightfold Path. You will grow it, you will develop it, you cultivate it. So it is how they say, develop, cultivate, so that the path is well trodden, that you can see at the end of the path the truth and then the right liberation. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Ng. There's another question, and then there are 2 more questions. So maybe the second question from online first, then we'll go to the floor. Yeah. There is always this part on letting go, but we know that this may be easier said than done. Is there a methodological way for a learner to execute the removal or denourishing of things that are unwholesome?
Okay. So so you said let go, let go, let go. So individual, it is very individual and personal, letting go. Because individuals' defilements are different. you may need to have a good friend. You may need to have a good friend who will tell you your defilements, because you are maybe ignorant of your defilements. So how do you, so then if your good friend tells you, hey, you got this bad habit leh, what say you? Then you have to be more mindful lor. You don't go into that bad habit lor. It takes a lot, you know. So for people to, so you notice that for this whole thing, this volition thing, so when a drug addict or a person who's addicted, when they want to overcome their addiction, they have to let go of their addiction. It takes a lot of energy. So you are right, it's easier said than done. So you have to have a lot of effort. You have to like stay on it. If you have a good friend, you have a good counselor, and say, stay clean, stay clean. You know, you have good friends who say that stay clean of it. So you have all this to help you to let go. So you need to restrain, restrain. You have to have careful. So you have to develop this to help you to let go. You have good friend to tell you, let you listen to the Dharma. Yes, yes. Sometimes you know yourself, but just weak in will only. Then it says, oh, I must. If I don't want bad and I don't want sad, then I must strive. Because the Buddha tells us to strive. His last words to us is to strive for Nibbana, for enlightenment. Strive to end the suffering. So this is like you have to strive. There is no way, but you have to exert, because not the danger you'll fall down the cliff. What is scarier than fall down the cliff? So the Buddha always says, always talk about the dangers. You can have the gratification, and you balance with the gratification. So you have gratification and dangers. The dangers of samsara is so overwhelming. If this COVID period didn't tell you enough, then you have not learned life's lesson. You see, it's so bad and so sad. So you have to overcome all this, that you have to strive. So it's a good time to seclude. You have this passion, time to draw within. So this is the Noble Eightfold Path is noble because the noble men and women have walked the path, and that they have realized the noble path and end their suffering. So this one has to be a lot of effort.
Maybe we have one more question before we go to the meditation.
Okay.
Any question?
Anybody?
I don't know whether it's so my question is actually to do with two things. One is hindrances. Hindrances, because actually in the Sammādiṭṭhi Sutta, it talks a lot about, in the end, you will not have the underlying tendency to a lot.
Oh, yes,
so
yes.
Is it related to the hindrances?
Right.
Or is it even deeper and even very underlying kind of thing that we have very deep in our mind?
So that means it's the root, lor. You have to go for the roots. What wholesome? The roots, you always have to ask yourself, is there something, is there a root of lobha, dosa and moha? Because most of our tendencies is because of there's some greed or some ill will. So these tendencies, and the tendency, greed, ill will, and then it says that it's a view. Also a tendency to certain view and conceit. So self, as there is no self, but there is this self that is conceit. There's this conceit, this very subtle self. This subtle self is conceit. I am best. Or I am lousy. I am sama. But there is nothing, there is all depending on conditions. You are uniquely unique. You are cannot be compared because of certain conditions. You are the way you are. So everybody has their unique conditions. So, and they have so many lives before them. There are certain tendencies they have. When you have children in the household, they are different, ma. They come with different tendencies. They're not just like brand new, nothing, no data added, They have a lot of tendencies. And in this life, there may be other tendencies that added on. So these are tendencies, and then the thing here is that you just know, you don't have to like, do I have some more? Do I have some more? Do I have some more? No need, just, I have this suffering. So you say, I'm suffering, right? What's the origin? What you want, Don't want, can let go or not? If you want, suffer. You can suffer, you are the one suffering. So we suffer. So he tells us out of compassion that we can stop the suffering. But we don't have to like look for the needle in the haystack. Maybe got some more. Then you doubt yourself whether there's any more. You will be clear. It will be clear whether you have clinging, craving. It will be clear to you.
Thank you, Dr. Ng. We shall take a 5 minutes break.
Okay.
And then we come back for the meditation. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's ready. Okay. So you settle down and we see how the Buddha is our friend. So we chant in your mind and see what this chant does to your mind. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Now you repeat it quietly 3 times in your mind and see what it does to your mind. You have to do it slowly so that you can savor it. You repeat it silently, slowly to yourself. Then you chant Namo Tassa. There's no hurry at all. So do you feel happy? Are you with a good friend? Can you see how the Buddha is your good friend? When you feel happy, the mind opens up. Whatever formations of clinging get some release. Notice whether you have any form of release. And notice that now if you are in the mind, that whatever you are looking at, sensations or whatever, they are all mind objects. So when we say Four Noble Truths as mind object, then you look at your mind and your body. Is there any discomfort or suffering? And where it is, which part of the mind? Is it the right lower mind field or right upper? Or left upper or left lower? Or in the center? Just watch and see how it changes. Don't go into the mind object, but just breathe in and out to have a distance from it. To be detached from the mind object. Just watch it. Arise and cease. Arise and change. So there's a view of the suffering as the mind object. See it change, but it still has a density. So you must use the entire Eightfold Path, entire Eightfold Noble Path. So the right thoughts, so this is not, is this any of the sense pleasures that you have are wanting for? So you renounce. So when you say the word renounce, nikama, notice what it does to the mind. Renounce. and what it does to the suffering sort of mind object. What's the effect of the word renounce on that mind object? Or let go? What is the effect of the word avyapada or non-ill will? Non-ill will on the mind and the object. Now you look at what's the effect of the word love or loving kindness or kind, depending on your preference, to your mind and the mind and mind objects. When I'm quiet, you just repeat that same word to yourself and see its effect. Then we see the effect of the word non-cruelty or avihimsa or compassion on the mind and mind objects. So we're using right thoughts, upama, renounce, devāpada, non-ill will, mettā, avihimsa, non-cruelty, notice what it does to the mind state. So this is the right view and right thoughts. So this particular session is to show you suffering as mind object. And you see its changes of the mind state with the right thoughts. But you see the mind object, notice the contact now of the mind consciousness and the mind object. The attention to the mind object is the mind consciousness. See whether you can see striking the mind object and its dispersal also. Just like the bouncing ball. Arise and cease. So the mind consciousness is that attention on the mind object. That's the mind consciousness. So it has to arise and cease, arise and cease. So then the mind consciousness directed to a one point. So I hope you can see mind object, mind consciousness today. So we come to the end of the session. Feel the thumb on the chair or the seat. Feel your entire body. Slowly open your eyes. Okay. Any questions on the floor or from the students? I think take some time.
Just now when you're saying about the sitting, so we have changed from we started off with the Four Noble Truths, right?
I started off Namo Tassa, right?
Yeah, Namo Tassa, I know. Then after that you say, do it at your own time. Recite it mentally at your own pace.
Yes, for Namo Tassa.
Yeah. That one, after that, when I do it in a very slow pace, or can feel that the mind is very relaxed, happy. Okay. So when after that you said something about now focus on your breath, breathing in, see the risings and ceasing. So at this point, my object should be the breathing, right? Correct or not?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Yeah. So also I want to just the Namo Tassa is to show you that you can always rely on the Buddha as a good friend. So you see, by just doing it very slowly, the
Yes.
chanting, and
Yes.
appreciating the significance of the words,
Yes.
then the mind becomes very happy, right?
Yeah.
Very relaxed and very happy.
Yes. Yes.
So you are already in that state of mind already.
Yeah.
The mind just opens up.
Yes.
And then when it opens up, it draws the volitions from below also. It just sort of opens up. So this is a way whereby the Buddha, by just saying it quietly in your mind, helps you. So I mean, it helps you to go to a happy state. So you're not suffering.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is how the Buddha is the whole of your holy life. And then at times, when you have difficulties, you can always go back to that mind state again. Because this is the contact with the Buddhas. By just contacting Namo-tassa, your mind perceives this happy state. So when you are suffering and that you have difficulty and you don't have the energy to sort of opens up your mind, because when one is suffering, one is constricted down to the suffering object. Then you sort of help it push up. When you, because it seems to be so solid. Sometimes suffering seems so solid because there's a lot of clinging and craving there, where it's supposed to be disappearing, arise and cease, arise and cease. So this arise and cease, this very words of the Namo-tassa, arise and cease, it elevates, it disperses. It's the end of your suffering. So if there's some holding, then it helps to dissipate it, helps to release it. So this is, at times of troubles, you always remember that the Buddha is the good friend. So it's a quiet mind, then you just, it helps you to go to that quiet state, the happy state. Helps you to go to the state where there is not suffering.
So the second question is that you said that you want us to see the mind, whether the mind is on the left, center, or right when we are
Mind object, not mind.
the mind object. So you said look at your mind.
As like a TV like that.
Yeah, correct.
Two dimension.
But at that time when I was listening to you, then actually I feel my backbones there suffering pain.
Yes.
So how should I answer
Then it should be, so you see a screen, right? So you are in the screen.
Yes.
Then you see it at the back,
so it
at
should
the
be
bottom,
bottom center.
bottom center.
Oh.
So you just see it as a mind object, bottom center.
Oh.
So this is like the sixth sense base,
Okay.
So this is the body, and this body is in your mind TV. The mind TV is there. So that part there is your sixth sense base. That is your suffering. So you see it as a mind object. Then you see it change. Do you see it change?
Yeah, yes.
So you just see it as so you don't see it as like, the pain and all those things. So you see it changing.
Okay.
So when you see it changing, then you can, it's an object, just like sound is an ear object. So you can see it change. So by seeing it change, so pain, when you see it change, becomes pleasure. The Buddha says, pain when it change becomes rapture, because these are just vibrations. So if you allow it to change, but because in addition to the pain, there's physical pain, you may add a mental pain. So then there's a grasping. So sometimes when you want to see grasping and mental volition, you can see it as a mind object of grasping or not. Sometimes you can compare, because it's become very fussy. When there's clinging, it becomes very fussy. When it's like a sound, it's very sharp. When birds calling is very sharp. When the mind object that is clung to, you check its, its sharpness, but it's actually a lot of like a mental formations holding on to it. So you have to see, then you'll be able to see your clinging, craving, but you'll be able to see changing. Then you will find the release. And then the release is like you release, you see it release. So when you see it release, then it's not stationary. You see its movements. So you then be able to have the cessation of that pain. So because it's changed already, it's that, but yes, changed. So that's why when you see it change, you see, it's at the lower center, right? Then after that, where did it go? Where did it go? For with every breath in and out, you can see change.
Yes.
Its nature, all conditioned things changes.
Okay, now I understand.
Okay.
Thank you. Dr. Ng, there's one question online. Dear sister, thank you for the valuable talk. What's the difference between the 4 ways of cessation? Is there any priority or sequence in that?
So this one also, I asked you all to, so the 4 ways, so what is the cessation? There's this ways of cessation that the Buddha says in the Asesa Viraga Nirodha, in the top. So in cessation, he says that there is giving up, chargo. So just now, I think I rubbed off already. So there's chargo, give up. Then we have patinisego. Then we have muti. Then we have analayo. So this is give up, renounce. Patinisego is abandon. They all have long words. So you can say leave it. Muti, release. Analayo is no attachment. So what are the differences? So your question is, what are the differences between these? So let's say you give up. So you give up smoking. So the cigarette you give up, put aside. After that, you may pick it up again, Just give up. Partial only. You give up. Okay, I give up. So that like in the 1 to 10, this one maybe only give up maybe 25. I don't know, maybe it's like 2 maybe in the way of giving up, in the way of entire cessation. Maybe let's say I divide by 4, this is 25%, right? Maybe 25% only chargo. So then after that, patinisego, leave it. So if you give up, you're just standing next to it, the cigarette is still next to you, or the favorite food is next to you, the durian piece is still next to you. Better don't eat anymore, give up. But it's next to you. Soon you may also like that, or you like smoke. Okay, so you just give up. But you still like vicinity. When you say leave, okay, leave it. You walk away. Leave it. So you have abandoned it. Patinisego, you abandon it. So the chances of taking it is 50% now, right? 50%. Then when you say release, release is like a bird being released from it. Higher, 75%. Then after that, somebody will take it in front of you. Hey, want to smoke? Then you say, no attachment. No, I'm not taking that. So it's 100%. So there is no arising. So in the last part now, there's no arising. So in the beginning, there may be this heart here is like moving, or like that, still moving. But the last part, there's no arising. You can eat it in front of me, smoke it in front of me, whatever you like to do, it doesn't shake me at all. So your mind becomes unshakable. So that is the way of letting go. So I use the word renounce, right? What does it do to your mind when you say renounce? Each individual, this may be individual, no? But the last one, analayo, is to ask yourself whether, when it's in front of you, whether you pick it up or not. So when there is a next rebirth, will you pick it up or not? It's all up to you to touch, right? So you say no more, then don't touch. But you haven't penetrated enough, or you might touch. So this is like, this is a craving. So the temptress, Tanha, Rati, Raga, the daughters of Mara, they will tempt you, right? But then they tempt, but then is no takers. So this is the most important is analayo. So you can always use words that more meaningful for you. I like small, short words. You can always try it out for yourself. Does let go sounds anything? It must have some meaning for you. So you must try certain words. Malay might say buang lah. So you use some Chinese words siam lah, or mai lah, or something lah. You just, sometimes some words have more room for you, to tell you, let go. There's some language will be more moving for you. So you use words have similarities to this, but it works for you. So in your mind, I said, you use renounce, so what does it do to your mind? You have suffering, so sometimes it holds very hard. So there's this suffering, then you need to release it, but it's holding very hard. So then, when you are still holding your object of desire, the Buddha says we are being very unkind to ourselves. You're having ill will, and you're having cruelty to yourself. Let it go. Then you must have these right thoughts. So these right thoughts is to help your release of your suffering. So this is how it works. So right view and right thoughts are together. So it's a wisdom faculty. So the others are the virtue and the samadhi faculty.
So where does disenchantment has to come in first, right, Dr. Ng?
Oh yes.
The disenchantment has to come first before you chargo, or you say chargo means is it a volition, or is it because you're
all right?
Disenchantment, if I'm not wrong, is a very intense feeling or seeing that makes you realize that actually it's no use. So I don't know where it happens, because I think that is quite important. It's not a matter of using our will, we say leave it, or using our will, we say I renounce. Of course, because based on our faith in the Buddha, we can say Buddha tells us to renounce. Okay, we renounce because we know Buddha is doing it for our own good. But there's another level of it, which is we actually see the thinness about it, fed upness about it. Like it's no use. There's this disenchantment, or what we call dispassion.
Nibbida. Disenchantment is nibbida.
Nibbida, yes, that's the word. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know how this happens.
So the thing here is this, so we are trying to practice. So it is on the path. So you must use a lot of tools. So this word 天手天眼, you need so many tools, Then you must use each tool for the appropriate problem. So meanwhile, you have used all the tools. Because before you arrive at the end, you try to use all the tools. You know for yourself whether there's any more arising of lust, of dosa. Only you yourself will know whether you're in challenge, whether you have the arising or not. So meanwhile, you still have to restrain yourself. You may not have completely thrown it away. You may not have completely given it up. But you know that this is unwholesome. You have to restrain. Until you have seen that this is really impermanent. I mean, it's impermanent. It is like delusionary to hold on to it. Because it's impermanent, ma. Why people hold on to things that are impermanent? Why people will build their homes on the shifting sands? Why? Why would people want to do that? So if there is no meaning to it, that you don't want to have any foundation, you don't want to be on anything that is impermanent, that is of no value, so it's anicca, dukkha, and anatta. When you see it is impermanent at different levels, if you see impermanent where there is that this grasping to something that is impossible to grasp, there is ignorance, there is foolishness. So why do we want to do foolish things? That we grasp on to the body that is impermanent, we grasp on to the mind objects that are impermanent, that we grasp on to all these other things that we think that are of value but are impermanent. So if it is impermanent and of no value, why grasp? So when you see things as impermanent, but you do not see enough to give it up, because there's still some attraction, there's still some luring, calling you. Never mind lah, one last time lah. But one last time you drop to the cliff, to beg and sad. So this enchantment, so you have to you can see again and again the dangers. So the impermanence, if you see impermanence, then all the other penny will drop. It's of no value. Why you hold on to it? You will be disenchanted with it. Once disenchanted, then you will leave, you will abandon wholeheartedly. But now it's only half-heartedly or quarter-heartedly or whatever-heartedly. So when you see again and again, so when you see the characteristics, every breath is impermanent, every feeling is impermanent, every mind base is impermanent, every jhanas is impermanent, every mind object is impermanent, all jhanas, all rupa jhanas, all arupa jhanas are all realms of existence are impermanent. Why do one indulge in them? So there is no, you have to be clear that, hey, why you indulge in them? Why you contact them? Why do you have careless attention? Why do you not have careful attention? That when you contact, you will go down to beg and sad. So this enchantment is a moving away. A moving away of the mind from something that is temporary, that now, because it's so involved with conditioned things, they cannot see the unconditioned. They cannot see the deathless because they are so involved with conditioned things. How to see? The whole mind is on these unwholesome things. And it may be on wholesome things. But then these two things require volitional formations, do not allow you to see the deathless. Once you cannot see the deathless, then you are still in the bad and sad. So this release, so this, until you have the wisdom is developed fully, so is then it become a power. So the five faculties, you may have the faith, you might have the energy, you have the mindfulness, you have the concentration, but without the wisdom, the final part is still the wisdom. Without the wisdom, it's very hard. All the others are supporting the wisdom. All the other practice is to see. So you have the vision, the knowledge. You see already, then is the knowledge of liberation and how to do it. You see it for yourself. Oh, this is the way to solve this problem. Then you have to internalize. This is a journey, although we are good friends, the path is walk alone. Then you have to be your own refuge. The Dharma has to be your refuge. It's no other way. So this abandonment has to cultivate the wisdom faculty. Or all these other 37 factors of enlightenment. So that you will have the what? W-A-T-T, then you light up.
Thank you, Dr. Ng. I'm sorry we are running a bit late, so we are unable to answer all the questions.
Any more questions?
Perhaps you can ask a question before the start of next week's session.
No more questions?
No more questions for the time being, but because we don't have time to get more questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Before we end the session, we shall share the merits of the cultivation program.
Sattā Mettā Devana Mahittika Punyam tam anumuditva Chiram rakantu lokasasanam Sattā Mettā Devana Mahittika Punyam tam anumuditva Chiram rakantu desanam Sattā Mettā Devanaga Mahittika Punyam tam anumuditva Chiram rakantu mam paramti Idame nyatinam hontu sukhitattā hontu nyatayo Idame nyatinam hontu sukhitattā hontu nyatayo Idame nyatinam hontu sukhitattā hontu nyatayo Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, brothers and sisters, for joining us today. You can revisit today's session by viewing the video on our Ti-Sarana Facebook page. Please look out for the topic for next week's session on our Facebook page next week. May we also share that tomorrow, Sunday, Bhante Chanda Vimala will be giving a Dharma talk at 12:30 p.m. We welcome all of you to join us. Yeah. Meanwhile, stay safe and well. See you again. Thank you.